Okay, welcome to part 1 of this tutorial. In this video I'm basically going to do what I always do, which is explain the database, the files, and then get on with the code. It's going to be a little bit different to some of my other videos because there is sort of a starting point code which we have, because this video is about adding pages to like an existing system, I guess, but just like you watching me create a database and adding loads of names to it would be a bit pointless. So what I've done is created a database. I've called it Pagination, however you say it, I have no idea. Feel free to not tell me. I've added one table called users, and log back in, and this table has 14 rows. Each one is a name. The first 5, for some, I thought of. Apparently thinking of names is quite hard, so then I went for TV shows. So what we're going to do is display these names on the page like I demonstrated before. I have the page open here. As you can see, I've removed the paging code from it, so at the moment it just displays a complete list of all the names. So yeah, what we're going to be doing is adding the paging code to separate this into sort of chunks of 5. So, the files, that's the next thing I want to say about. If I just go back to our root, you can see this is the file I opened in my browser a moment ago. We have this is our actual page, and I'll be showing you that in a moment. And then, as always, we have this core folder, which has an init file in it, and then in that folder we have an inc folder, which in this case has this users file. This is going to be like a backend file that provides all the users functions. So this is sort of something you probably would have on a site, any kind of site that has a member system, or like a forum or anything at all, really. Well, anything with users, basically. So that's basically it for the folder structure. I don't want to explain it in too much detail because it's what I use in all the videos, so that's that. Now the only thing that's slightly different about this series is that I have basically started already. So this is the user list page at the moment. It calls this, well, basically it's just a simple HTML page, and it calls this fetch users function, which we get from the users backend file up here, and then it sort of loops over the result of this and outputs each username in a paragraph tag. So that's what we were looking at a moment ago. That's our actual list of like users, basically. So you can see at the top that we have this include line, which includes the init file. And again, this is something I've covered in pretty much every video so far, so if you haven't watched any of those, you should do. So this init file is in the core folder, like I said, and I've also got that open here. And just so that you don't have to watch me typing the same things over and over again, I've already set it up to connect to the database, and this is the standard method that we use in all of our videos, my videos. videos. So we're getting the path, the current full system path to this actual file, and then we're stripping out the file name part using this dir name function. So this will just be the full system path to the core folder that I showed you a moment ago, and then we're using this path to include the files. I'm not going to go into the reasons for this, but this is basically what it's doing. So this init file is just connecting to the database and then including any files that are in like the inc folder in this case, but basically it's just including this users file, and this is the users file. At the moment it just defines one function which gets all of the usernames from a database. So again, we've used this method before, so we're doing a simple select query, select username from users. So this username is, username here is like our column name. So if I just go back to our table, you can see that username is one of our columns. If I just go to the structure tab, you can see that like field, username is one of the fields, one of the columns. Well, I want to be there anyway. So yeah, that's that. And then we're just looping over the result of that query, adding each username, each name basically, into an array, and then we just return that information. So what we're going to be doing in this part is adding 2 parameters to this function, page and per page. The page variable, first parameter, will define which page of information we want, and the second parameter, per page, will specify how many results should be on each page. So I'm going to go ahead now and add these two parameters, so page and per page, like so. And then obviously we need to like process this in some way. We need to use these parameters. So what I'm going to do is define two new variables. One of them is going to be called start, and I'm going to explain that in a moment, so just bear with me. And this is going to be equal to int, casting everything to an integer because we want to make sure that SQL injection would be impossible. And as we're dealing with numbers, you're not going to get like 0.5 of a page, that'd be silly. So start is like the sort of row you want to start from in the table. So like you want to, like say if you were on page 1, you'd want to start from row 0. If you're on page 2 and there were 5 results on each page, you want to start from result number 6, because 1 to 5 would be on the first page, 0 to 5 even, 0 to 4, so maybe you want to start from 5. Anyway, you can confuse yourselves over the logic of that. So we're going to define this start variable, which is the row we want to start getting information from, and this is going to be equal to the page number minus 1 multiplied by the per page variable. Obviously we need a semicolon there and no p. The reason we take away 1 is so that well, we just need to basically, because imagine if you had page 1 and you do here, you'd have like if you didn't have the minus 1, it'd be page multiplied by per page. So that'd give you, say per page is going to be 5, so you'd have 1 times 5, 5, and for the first page you don't want to start from result 5, you want to start from result 0, because it's the first page. So by taking away 1, you sort of get the first page of results, or the first actual set of results on the first page. Hopefully that makes sense anyway. And the other thing that we're going to define, well, not really define, we're just going to cast the per page variable to an integer as we did a moment ago, for the same reason, just to prevent SQL injection. There we go. I'm just going to tab these across to make them look a little bit neater. There we go. And what we need to do now is use these in the query. So we're going to use the MySQL limit keyword here. What limit does is sort of limits the results effectively, so it will allow you to specify which rows you want from the table. So what we're going to do is limit start. Start sort of takes two parameters in a way. It's not really a function, but it does require two arguments. So we're going to limit start, and start is like I said, it's the row ID sort of that you want to start from. So 0 being the first row. So if we had limit 1, it'd skip the first row, and then comma, and then a space if you want to. I always use a space, and then it's the number, and the second parameter is the number of results that you want. So it's not really. It's quite easy to get confused and think this is like the first start row and the end row. It's not. It's the start row and the number of results you want. So we just want the number of results to be per page, because that's like the number we want to display on each page, basically. So that's basically it for our function modifications here. So if I just go back to the user list page now, we obviously need to add these parameters here. So just to demonstrate, I'll add 1 and 5, like manually. And this should, if I've done everything right, display the first 5 results from the table. So if I just hit reload, as you can see it's worked, which is good. So we've got Bob, Carl, Simon, Jess and Emma, which are the first 5 rows from this table. So I just reload the page, you can see these first 5. So that's worked, and what we need to do now is just add the page numbers and make this dynamic, obviously. So what we're going to do is just come down here, and we're going to output some very basic links to different pages. So we're going to be to work out how many pages we need to know the total number of rows in the table. So we're going to create a new function in the users backend file called fetch total users. So I'm going to define that now. Called function, standard way of doing this, function fetch total users. It's not going to take any parameters. It's just going to do a very simple query, which I'm just going to call result, and this is going to be equal to MySQL query, and the query is going to be select count with a capital T, count user ID from users. And what this will do is get the number of users in the table, basically. It counts the number of user IDs, which is the number of rows. And then to fetch this result, because at the moment all we've done is perform the query, we haven't actually fetched the result, we use the MySQL result function, and we pass that the query resource and the row. I believe it's the row. I never remember that because I only ever use it. No, it's not. It's the column. It's the column across the result. That's it. Sorry, ignore me. So yeah, it's like the... I don't know. Go and check. But you need 0. Pro, right? So that gets the... that will actually get the result from the query. And then, just because we don't need to process it anyway, we're just going to return this like so. And just bring that down the line to make it look a bit neater. So yeah, there you go. That will get the total number of users in the table. So now if I just down here do echo fetch total users, just to test this, I should have an S, and hit reload. Ooh dear. Oh no, what's gone wrong? That should have an S. There we go, 14. So now we get 14 output because we have 14 rows in our table. So what we need to do with this is work out how many pages we will actually need. So what I'm going to do is remove that echo and define a new variable called total pages, and that's going to be equal to total number of actual users in the table divided by the number of users we want on each page. So this is like our per page number, which I've used 5 for this. And there's a bit of a problem here because you need to round it up, because say if you had 11 users, this total pages would then be something like 2 point something, but you would actually need 3 pages. So you want to round this up so that because the first page, if you had 11 users, the first page would have 5, the second page would have 5, and the third page would have 1. So the third page needs to be counted, even though it's not like a complete list of 5 users. If that makes sense. But anyway, the way to do that is using the ceil function, short for ceiling, and there you go, that rounds up. So now we have this total pages variable. We can use this to output the number of pages that we have. So we're going to do that using a for loop. So we're going to do for, we can find a new variable here called I, just something to increment basically. You could probably use page, it'd make a bit more sense, but I'm going with I. So for I is equal to 1, so while I is 1, we want to do something, and we want to do that something. No, that's wrong, but we're going to define I as 1, and then while this next condition is true, so while I is less than or equal to total pages, we want to increment I. So what this will do is loop through all of the numbers from 1 up until and including the number of pages that we have. So in here we just want to output a simple link tag with the link to the page. So let's just add that now. So a href equals, these need to be escaped because they're inside a double quoted string. So that's like the basics of our link tag. And in here we're going to have the I variable, and then what we're going to be linking to is question mark page equals I. And then we're going to use that to decide which page we're on basically. I'm also going to add a space at the beginning and the end of the A tag just to make it look a bit neater. So I'll reload our page now. You should see pages 1 to 3, which you can. So if you look at the bottom of my browser window, you can see this links to user list question mark page equals 1. This is equal to page. This links to page equals 2, and this to page equals 3. So because I've somehow rambled on a bit too much as usual, I'm going to end this here, and in the next part we are going to sort of use this link to actually decide what page we're on, because obviously at the moment when I click them nothing happens, except you can see that the URL changes. Okay, so thanks for watching, and join me in part 2 where we'll basically just finish this off.